In this video, we will go over the amendment process, or the changing of the Constitution. The first reason for this is that the framers knew that the Constitution would change over time. So they wanted to put a clause in the Constitution in which people would be able to do that. They wanted this to be a living document, something that was not going to be set in stone and could be pretty flexible. The framers, they made changing the Constitution possible, but it's not the easiest to do. There's a lot of steps that need to go into place, and we will talk about those throughout this video. They really wanted to do this because they wanted the Constitution to be able to provide a lasting and stable framework for the government. They didn't want something that was going to get thrown out 50 years later because it just wasn't up to the times anymore. They knew that the future was going to change. They knew things were going to happen. And they wanted a process to change the Constitution in order to appease the future and what it brought. Changes to the Constitution are called amendments, and amendments are proposed in one of two ways. So the first way an amendment or a change to the Constitution is proposed is that Congress may propose an amendment by a vote of at least 2/3 in each of the House and the Congress. So think about this. A change to the Constitution has to be proposed, and then for an actual amendment to continue going forward, that needs a 2/3 vote in the Senate as well as the House of Representatives. And this is very, very difficult to get, especially a 2/3 vote, especially in today's age when we're talking about Democrats and Republicans. Very difficult to get these 2/3. So that's what they mean by it's possible, but it's not easy. The second way of doing this is calling a national convention by Congress at the request of 2/3 of the state legislatures. This has actually never occurred, but it is possible. So a national convention would essentially be elected members would get called by Congress if 2/3 of the states agreed with it, and they would propose an amendment or a change to the Constitution. Once again, that has never occurred. So when we're talking about proposals, we're going to be looking at the left side of this graphic here. This is the first option. As you can see, it's proposed by 2/3 of the vote in both houses of Congress. And then the second option would be a proposal by 2/3 vote of a national convention, which was called by Congress at the request of 2/3 of state legislatures. Once again, that has never happened. Only the top proposal has happened. Now, once an amendment or a change to the Constitution has been proposed, and they've done that successfully, the next step is the ratification process. So to ratify means to either pass or approve something. So this proposal needs to be approved. There's two ways to approve or ratify an amendment. The first way to ratify an amendment is to be approved by state legislatures in 3/4 of the states. This has occurred successfully 26 times. So, if we're talking about an amendment, it would be proposed in the House and passed with a 2/3 vote in both the Senate and the House of Representatives, and then it would go to our state legislatures in all 50 states. In order for that to be accepted or approved, 3/4 of the states would need to pass that amendment. The second way to do this is that you can ratify an amendment by special conventions in at least 3/4 of the states. This is a lot more rare, and it's only happened one time. So an example of this, and every state has different laws, but if an amendment is proposed, it could possibly be given to special conventions. So each state has a different law. For example, in Florida, their conventions are elected by the people. So their convention would, I think, consist of 67 people, and that they're elected by the people of the state to vote on the amendment or not. And these special conventions, same thing as the first option there, it needs to pass by 3/4 of the states. Once an amendment is approved, it finally becomes part of the Constitution. here's a graphic that's going to help you out a little better in understanding this. So an amendment, it can be proposed one of two ways. It can be proposed by 2/3 of a vote in each House of Congress, so the House of Representatives and the Senate. It can also be proposed by a national convention, which has to be called by Congress at the request of 2/3 of state legislatures. So remember, this one at the bottom has never occurred. This one has occurred 26 times. Okay, the next step in this process, and either one of these can go both ways. It does not matter. So if you start at the bottom, you can have it ratified one of two ways. Same thing at the top. You can have it ratified one or two ways. So the first way you can get something passed, if it is successfully proposed, is to ratify by 3/4 vote of state legislatures. The next one is to ratify by 3/4 of state conventions, and these conventions vary by your state law and how they are chosen. Once again, this is just a different graphic to give your eyes kind of another image of how we can amend the Constitution. As you can see here, proposal by 2/3 of vote of both houses of Congress has been done 26 times, and then it's been passed by state conventions only once. So it's important to know that more than 10,000 amendments have been suggested, but they are very, very hard to pass, as only 27 have been approved and they've successfully gone through the process. The first 10 amendments, as we will learn, happen almost directly after the approval of the Constitution, and these first 10 amendments are called the Bill of Rights. And what these do is they guarantee rights to American citizens, and we will go over those in Chapter 10. The other 17 amendments happen one at a time. They didn't happen in a cluster as we saw with the first 10. Some of these amendments have changed the way public officials are elected. Others had guaranteed rights of certain groups of Americans. Some examples of the other 17 amendments are the 13th Amendment, which outlawed slavery, the 19th Amendment, which guaranteed women the right to vote, and then the 26th Amendment, it gave the right to vote to all citizens over the age of 18. This next image here, it shows you all of the amendments that have been put into place thus far in our country's history. You can kind of pause the video and maybe sift through some of these amendments if you would like.